Hello, and a big welcome to all of you who are listening and seeing this podcast. Today we have a foreigner far away from, and I'm so happy to have you here, Terri Jay. Welcome to us.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Anne. It's really an honor.
And you were just telling me that your background, that is your backyard. I
Yes,
found that fantastic.
that's my view. Over here is California, and over there is Nevada. It's
Wow.
right through the middle of the mountains.
Yeah, that's a great, great view.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about what you're doing because that's very special.
Well, I do readings on horses, and I do it long distance. I've done them all over the world. And what I help with is behavior, performance, soundness, and health issues. And, especially with performance horses, we need to know they're okay. We need to know they're happy doing their job. And a lot of people worry about that. And they have a horse that gets crabby or cranky, and they just think, oh, they're done, they're washed up. And I can just find out, because I do remote viewing, that there's a physical problem and a reason for it. And then I can recommend solutions for it too, which is, it's very gratifying, to find out that what you pinpointed on a horse, what I was able to pinpoint, they were able to then, confer with a vet and then get it resolved too. So it's very, very gratifying, to do this work.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize that we're born with 10 senses. We have 5 physical and 5 energetic or spiritual senses. And those are intuition, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, and claircognizance. Well, clair just means clear. So it's clear seeing, clear hearing, clear feeling, clear knowing. And we all have all of that plus intuition. And horses are also very telepathic. They're very telepathic.
Yeah.
And we're born that way. We just shut it off in childhood because somebody tells us, oh, no, you're not seeing that. And it's just your imagination. And then we all shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very easy to learn to turn it back on. And I've written 3 books to teach people how to do it. And I'm working on the 4th. The 4th is on the dog communication.
Wow.
Once I get that done, then I'll do the horse communication and then cats. And then I have 2 novels I'm going to write too. So I love to write. So it's been really an amazing journey for me because I'm a very down-to-earth person. I mean, I was out there playing in corrals and stalls this morning. I consider myself a very down-to-earth person. And but in 1990, I was doing a horseback therapy program with disabled kids. And I picked a kid up out of his wheelchair and I put him on the back of one of my horses. And he looked at me and he said, ouch, I have a cramp in my hip. And that's pretty normal with a CP child. Yeah. That's cerebral palsy. And so I said, you have a cramp? Well, here, sit this way. It'll take the cramp out. And he looked at me and he said, hey, you can hear me. And I went, well, of course I can hear you. It didn't dawn on me at the time that he was completely nonverbal. So we continued doing our riding lesson. We did vaulting. We did vaulting, which is gymnastics on horseback. And I took him off the horse when we were done and put him back in his wheelchair, and he went back to class. And the gal that was helping me said, boy, he's sure talking great. Because she was hearing my end of the conversation, and he was talking about the school play and his little girlfriend and just all kinds of things that had nothing to do with the horseback riding. And I said, well, he's very bright. Just because he has CP doesn't necessarily mean he has any cognitive issues. And she looked at me and she said, Terri, he didn't say a word. He can't, remember? And if I was a horse, I would have done a buck, fart, snort, because they, how they do all 3 of those things at one time. So I went in the classroom and they put a band around his head with a pointer on it. And on his computer, he had typed out horse lady can hear me. So right then I had confirmation that we did really have this conversation. I was in shock. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather. And I went outside and I told her what happened. And she said, you're just really matter of fact. She goes, well, if you can hear him, you got to learn to communicate with the horses because all animals are telepathic, which that was the first I was hearing it. And I was like an idiot, just went, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And there were like no books at the time. This is 1990. There's like Henry Blake's book on, horse talk or something. And, there weren't a lot of books at the time. Now it's like a cottage industry. But so I just started doing it. I was married to a really gifted horse trainer at the time. And so he would bring horses in and say, hey, come read this one. And so I'd tell him what I was getting. And most of the time, the behavior problems on those horses were fixed with chiropractic. It wasn't his training. I mean, he's a good trainer, but most of them just had pain issues that the owners weren't aware of. So it's been a journey. And as I did more and more horses, I would start picking up on stuff with the people. And so I just sort of branched out, and now I know there's no limits to the amount of information that you can receive from the universe. So the only work I won't do is predictions, because they're unethical due to the law of attraction. And I don't like doing police work because it's so negative, but anything else goes.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. So you actually heard him speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just and the thing is that, you know, when you're speaking to an animal like a horse, you're going to get pulses of information. You know, they didn't take English and grammar. So
No.
you're just going to get pulses of information, but he was thinking in full English sentences.
Wow.
So it was very easy to hear him. And it was so cute because he told me, he says he does that with his mom too. He can hear his mom is just totally telepathic and intuitive with him.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Why do we just throw this away? It's a gift.
No, I don't think they're gifts, Anne. I really believe they're skills. And I think that we use them in childhood. I mean, I counsel a lot of parents that have very intuitive telepathic children. They don't know what to do with them. You know, and the kids are mediums. They're seeing and talking to people that aren't there. They're non-physical people.
Yeah.
And so it scares the crap out of them. So, you know, I do a lot of counseling for parents that have children that are, I want to use the word aware. Just aware is a really good word. And it can be very distracting for a child if they're, you know, trying to learn. And in their classroom, there's 4 or 5 people that are non-physical trying to communicate with them. So they have to learn control over it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important aspect of it, is we all have it, but we just have to learn to control it. Otherwise, we get the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah, that's the thought. And as you said, it can be scary because maybe there's something we didn't ought to listen to. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to go out in public because, you know, I'm picking up on everybody's junk, really. You know, my guides are always pointing out stuff to me. And a lot of times they point stuff out and I go, and I'm supposed to do what with that information? And they really just want me to focus in on it. Like 2 days ago, I was going through Facebook and there was an ad for Himalayan salt on a rope. And I call it the golden finger, but it's like the golden finger came up and tapped that photo, like pay attention. And I went, all right, I'm looking at it. And in a reading last night, I said, your horse says there's a thing on a rope. I said, I'm going to say it's a Himalayan salt lick. But you don't have them at your house, but someplace that he goes, they have them. And he wants one because he really likes it. She started laughing. She goes, I do not have them at my barn. She says, but we go over to this training facility and they do have them. And so it made perfect sense once I shared that information with her. So I just sort of pay attention to what that golden finger is doing because it's pointing out stuff that I'm going to need later, which I just think is incredible.
Yeah, yeah. It's like going on a restaurant. There's something better over there.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Yeah, you have to, you know, really tune into it. But it's so fun to do grief counseling. And people think that sounds really depressing, but I'm not grieving. I'm tuned into whoever's passed, whether it's an animal or a human. And all I'm relaying is the happy, fun stuff. Because, you know, people don't understand this, but when we pass and animals pass, nothing negative goes with them to the other side. So all of their pain, suffering, unfinished business, regrets, lack of forgiveness, all of that stuff gets shed off and left behind in the earthly realm. So some mediums don't understand discernment. So they will tune into that negative stuff, and it looks like, feels like, and sounds like the deceased. But because they don't have discernment, they will share that negative stuff as if it is how the person or animal is now. Oh, they didn't cross over, and oh, they have so much pain and suffering and unfinished business, and it's all BS. It's total BS. Because nothing negative can go to the other side. It wouldn't be heaven if negative stuff went to the other side.
No.
You know, it just wouldn't. And of course, they can't see anything negative in the earthly realm either. If there's a birth, if there's a graduation, if there's an engagement, a wedding, all those happy things, they all show up for it. They all show up for it. But anything negative, they cannot even perceive it. It's just not a vibrational match to the other side. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm. That's right. But I was wondering, you say everything is heaven. It can't be heaven if it's negative. But is there only heaven, or is there hell as well?
No hell. No.
No hell?
I think here on Earth, a lot of people live in hell here on Earth, you know, of their own making sometimes. You know, because if you think about the law of attraction, what you think about, you bring about. When people get lots of negative thoughts and they feel disempowered and they feel like a victim, yeah, they're in hell here on Earth. But I think that was something that was devised to scare people, you know, just into compliance, you know, in certain religions. But I've never found it to be true, never.
No. That's great. Great news.
And all of our animals go to the same place we do too.
Yeah.
There isn't separate places for our animals and us. We all go to the same place. Isn't that cool?
Yes, it is, really.
My dogs are wrestling in the back.
Yeah.
They're so bad. They're so naughty. They're just naughty.
Wow.
They're both puppies. One's 1 and the other's 2. And they're busy all the time.
They just have fun.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You don't need TV if you have 2 dogs.
No.
If you have 1, the one's going to be bugging you to play all the time. But if you have 2 dogs, they just play with each other all the time. And then, you know, you just get to watch them. They're so fun.
Dogs are really, really fun. And
oh gosh, yeah.
So forgiving as well. Now we are talking about good and bad and so on. And the horses are too forgiving if we are not that good to them.
Yeah, sometimes we just forget how sensitive they are. They're so sensitive. I have a funny story. I came out to the barn one morning and my mare was 3-legged. She was lifting her right hind. I went, oh no. You know, it's like one thing after the other with her. She's just, you know, not a healthy horse. And I just thought, shoot. And so I hung her hay bag and I turned around, and just as I turned around and, you know, quit thinking about it, I heard abscess. And then so I did the abscess happy dance, because we know that's fixable. It's going to resolve. It's going to be fine. So I went, oh, thank goodness. But then I turned back around and I told her, I said, hurt, foot, abscess, pop, better. And that's what I told her. And that's kind of how you communicate in pulses of information.
Yeah.
You don't have to give them a whole sentence. They're not going to get it anyway. And she just went, okay, you know, she just accepted it because I don't lie to her. And 2 days later, I came out and I'm hanging the hay bag and she goes, popped. I mean, it was just really, you know, I could just hear it in my head, popped. I said, popped? And she said, yes. And sure enough, I walked around behind her and there's this big old dribble of pus coming down the side of her hoof. Mm-hmm. But isn't it amazing to be able to have that communication?
Yeah.
You know, that she's going to be okay. You know, it just has to pop. And she got that concept that it needed to pop. Isn't that amazing?
It is really. And you're talking about you don't have to say all the sentence.
No.
They are looking in pictures, horses as well. Yeah.
But the thing that we miss as horse people, we miss their sense, their smelling. Mm-hmm. There's so many times where a horse will just stick its nose up and sniff the air, and we give them nothing when they do that. Mm-hmm. And they're going, what smell? What smell? I was trail riding one time, and the horse I was on just stopped, and he's smelling, and he said, what? And then he was like saying, like mountain lion. He was sending me, a picture of mountain lion. I said, no. And then I just looked across the valley and I could see deer. I said, deer. Mm-hmm. And I said, over there. And I gave them mental image of where they were. And he just zoomed in on them and just, froze looking at them. And he said, big or far? And I said, far. He says, how big? And I showed him about the size of the deer. He said, eat horses? I said, no. I said, eat grass like horse. And he went, oh, and then just went wandering off down the trail again. But once he had it explained to him what that smell was, that they were far away, that they weren't big, they weren't going to eat him, it was fine. And this is really interesting. I'm in Nevada, and Nevada has the most wild horses of any state in the United States. And when you start working with a wild horse that's fresh off the range, the main thing they are asking you is if you're going to eat them, if you're going to kill them and eat them.
Yeah.
And when you can get across to them, no, and you picture yourself scratching them and them making faces with the scratching, and just hugging them and having that partnership and giving them treats. And when you can convey that to them, their whole attitude just changes. They just relax. But as horse people, that doesn't even enter our consciousness, that a horse would be afraid we're going to eat it. You know what I mean? I mean, unless we're in France. I know French people eat horses. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is also, we have been talking a lot about. It's not strange that horses sometimes just throw us off. We are a predator, and we sit on the horse and in a very dangerous position for the horse. And you have a saddle on, and that's a dead animal. So
Right.
no wonder that they sometimes, oh, this is not great.
Well, and the biggest problem that we run into is that horses are in so much pain and we're clueless. It's like, if it ain't limping, it's fine. And the opposite can be true. I talked to a horse that that stopped eating, and her veterinarian said it was a virus. And man, I tuned into that horse and instantly got TMJ, the jaw joint. And look how big their jaw is, right? And it was excruciating. And this horse was so articulate. He showed me a big tire feeder. I don't know if you use those in Europe, but it's a big tire feeder, and it's got a bottom on it. And then it's got sheet metal so that, they don't eat the wood. You know what I mean? But it's like a big tractor trailer. And that horse spooked and forgot to lift his head before he took off. And he whacked the side of his head on the tire. And so he had TMJ that was so bad, he couldn't chew. He could barely drink. And so obviously the owner was, she was getting ready to put him down. He'd lost like 300 pounds.
Wow.
And luckily they had a chiropractor that just lived right down the street from her. And I knew this. And so anyway, when the chiropractor got there and adjusted the horse's jaw, the horse pinned him to its chest with his chin. He pulled the guy into his chest, and he wouldn't let go of him. He wouldn't let go. The guy's trying to get out from underneath the horse's neck, and then the horse is like holding on to him. It was really something, because he was finally so relieved that somebody figured out that he had pain. And he adjusted him, and it was like the horse, and he adjusted him all over too, not just his jaw. And the horse went to sleep for about an hour and got up and just started eating like crazy.
Oh,
Isn't that something? They were going to put that horse down. I mean, it's amazing what they tell you if you just listen. But they cannot do without chiropractic. And then we use microcurrent therapy in the US. I don't know if you guys have that in Europe, but it's Accuscope and Equiscope. And it's microcurrent therapy. And it is the absolute best modality for soft tissue. It's so stinking healing. Oh my goodness. And so those are the only two things I recommend for normal, regular maintenance on a horse, is they've got to have those two things. And I think in Europe, you guys start your horses later, right?
It depends. It depends on race horses. They start very early.
Right.
Riding horses, I think, also a bit early. They start riding them when they're 2.5, 3 years.
Right.
Um,
But in the US, we've got a really serious problem with kissing spine.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
from carrying, their back is the last thing to develop. It doesn't develop until they're 6 or 7. It doesn't finish growing. And so with kissing spine is a big deal here.
Yeah.
And sometimes chiropractic will help, injections will help, and then in serious cases, surgery, so that they can, kind of shave away the parts that are rubbing and touching and pinching the nerves.
Yes.
And oh my God, I can't stand to see those 2-year-old Western pleasure classes. 2 years old, which means they started them as yearlings. And those horses are going to be cripples by the time they're 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It's like, you're just going to ride them until they're 5 or 6 until they're cripples, and then you retire them. It's really sad.
Yeah.
But we have to look at how they develop and what parts of them develop, and be very aware of what's going on with them, and to try to keep them comfortable too. Because it's a lot of horses, they're just full of piss and vinegar, and they want to buck and fart and play and run and get crazy.
Yeah.
And sometimes they forget themselves, and it's like, even though they're under saddle, they just want to be silly. And but sometimes it is serious pain that we're not paying attention to. And I love doing readings on horses because I can just go through the horse. It's almost like a hologram of the horse appears in front of me. And I can just go through that horse and just say, he's sore here, he's sore there, he's sore there, and just go. And then they can tell the chiropractor, but a good chiropractor, you shouldn't have to tell them anything. They're just going to go through from whiskers to tailbone, is what I call it. Yeah. But they need to have that. I've had people say, well, if they have a behavior problem, we just send them back to the trainer. And the trainer's going to just go call the chiropractor. That's what they're going to do. Because if the horse is broke, it's broke. Yeah. So I really feel like most behavior problems in horses, if they've been started right, it is really just undiagnosed pain.
Yeah, that's really sad. When people don't open up, if they only rely on the veterinary and all of that, what can we do? What can we do? Can we open up ourselves and feel the horse, or how do we do that?
Well, it's developing the abilities that you're born with. Seriously, anybody can do this. It's veterinary intuition. I talked to a gal last night, and she kept looking at that right front. Oh my goodness, it's the right front. It's the right front. I went, no. She said, I spent $3,000 at the veterinarian and x-rays, and they said the next step is an MRI. I said, where this is coming from. I said, it's not in the foot. And I said, you tell me. She said, shoulder. I said, yep, you got it. And this person owned an Accuscope. They owned the machine that'll fix it. Wow. But it was like, how we have sciatic pain that starts in our pelvis and goes down our leg? Mm-hmm. What that feels. Everybody knows what that feels like. Well, horses get that too. They have piriformis syndrome, in their booty. The same thing. They need to have adjustments, and then they need to have something for the soft tissue so it relaxes all of it. And this horse, it was just like sciatic pain, only it's in the front end. It's not the sciatic nerve, but there's a nerve that comes right out of the withers down the leg. And so now she's like so happy because she doesn't have to do any more diagnostics, and she can just start treating the shoulder. So she was really happy with it. Yeah. So they've got to have that care. Oh my goodness. And the other weird things that I get from horses is like TMJ issues for some reason, teeth issues, again, the kissing spine issues. And it's just, we really need, if we use those two modalities, chiropractic and acuscope or equiscope, which is microcurrent, we're going to cut a lot of our problems just all the way down to nothing, as long as they get it regularly. The other things that I see a lot are ulcers. And I think, when we found out that a horse goes 4 hours without food, that causes ulcers. Where I live, there's pasture for the cows, but mostly everything's on dry lot. And so we got slow feeding hay bags, and those horses are never without hay, never.
No.
They have hay bags in front of them 24/7. They get a fat one in the morning, and 7 a.m., 7 p.m., they get a hay bag. It has just been the best, and it's so much less work too.
And cheaper as well.
It is, yeah, because there's very little waste. So that's been a godsend for us. But it's like the minute I found out, I thought, and we fed at 7 a.m., 4 p.m. That doesn't make any sense. That's for our convenience. So they eat at 4, and then when it cools off in the evening, then we can ride. Makes no sense.
Wow.
So we totally changed our feeding schedule, and they're just really, really happy with it. It's weird, though, to have horses that aren't hungry. They want their bran mashes because they get those 3 times a day because it has meds in it. And that's the best thing for mixing meds. And it puts lots of moisture into the gut. And people go, oh, it's going to cause a calcium phosphorus imbalance. I do blood work on my horses. I have never had a calcium phosphorus imbalance. They're not getting buckets of it. They're getting like 2 cups a time. And then they get a little senior in there and all their meds and supplements and all that stuff. But, it's really amazing how much pain horses can be in and still function. So I always tell people check for ulcers or treat for ulcers. And then I don't know if you have EPM in Europe, but it's equine. Yes. You have it? Yeah. And I pick up on that a lot. And if they just have a mild case, they just sort of seem out of it. Like they don't want to, maybe their back end seems weak or something. And so we have some natural products that I recommend for people, to use to treat the EPM. I don't know if you have them in Europe, but
yes, we have now, and it's a problem that's getting bigger and bigger, and yeah, we can talk about that for hours, but I think a lot is that we give our horses too much, not too much hay, but it is fertilizer and everything in this hay, so they get a lot of uh, in their body that they can't get rid of, and yeah, I'm only feeding with not old hay, but the hay is we have been taken in the late season, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
We're really blessed because we get Timothy Orchard. So Timothy's in his 70/30, and Timothy is the absolute best horse hay. I don't know if you have that, but and then Orchard adds in what Timothy doesn't have, which is vitamin A. And I would never feed alfalfa, and we have people here feeding alfalfa like crazy. And I go, that's dairy cow hay. That's for ruminants, not ungulates. Horses are ungulates. They're one-stomached animal. And but they just still want to feed it. And back in the 50s and 60s, the farmers scratched their head and went, if we planted alfalfa, we get more cutting, we get more yield per acreage. Why do we get those crazy horse people to feed it? We'll tell them it's good for the horses. It's not. But they got more yield, so therefore they make more money. You get more alfalfa than you do grass out of an acre, And so that's how they got us all hooked on alfalfa. And the horses think it's freaking candy. Holy crap.
Yes.
I will never feed it. I mean, never. And so it's really funny because when my clients tell me, yes, we're feeding baby, and I just have to go, Terri, shut up. Don't say anything. We're not going to change. Don't say anything.
No.
And I just don't bring it up because they're not going to change. They're hooked on alfalfa, and I'm not going to be able to change their mind on it. But basically, I tell people to look for, treat for ulcers, treat for EPM. And then the only other thing that comes up is Lyme's. A lot of horses will get Lyme's. And was a really interesting article in 2015 that said that the main ingredient in claritin, which is an antihistamine, the main ingredient in claritin kills Lyme's, which I thought was really interesting because it's an easy, inexpensive treatment. And I've had some people that have tried it, coordinating with their doctor or their veterinarian, and have had great, great, great results. So isn't that amazing? Such a simple fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nature is simple. They provide for themselves, but
Right.
we human who want to do it so good as we can, and we put a lot of things in it because we want to care for the horses, and then they often get too much.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But oh my God, it's just, and listen, since you're in Europe, would you find a couple of halflingers and send them to me? I'm a halflinger addict. I don't go
Yeah.
to meetings. We just collect them.
Okay.
I just love halflingers.
Yeah.
They're just the best. They're short and wide, just like me, close to the
Yeah.
ground. So
They're
that's
nice.
oh God, they're great horses. My main horse is 20, he's 25. And I'm 71. So I've got 2 or 3 more years, and then we'll be in the Century Club, where our ages together equal 100. So I have a couple of years yet to go.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, we're not that far from Osterich.
I know, that's why you should go over and get me some. I really like the old style too, the ones that are real chunks. I just
Yeah.
had to put one down that was built like that. She was severely laminitic and in Cushing's, and oh my goodness, we just could not keep her comfortable. It was just awful.
Yeah.
But letting them go and it is so hard, but they come back. Their spirit comes back. And when I talked to her about being put down, that we could, put her to sleep, and then she would fly out of her body. It was so amazing because she said, like the other horse. And I said, what? She said, other horse. And she showed me this wide white blaze. She said, other horse fly around. And that's the horse I put down like 5 years ago. So she knew that horse was, I say flying because their feet don't touch the ground, but they still look like they're cantering. But isn't that cool? I mean, and I thought, okay, well, you want to do that? And she said, oh yeah. And so putting her down was just, and it was really a blessing and she popped out of her house. I popped out of her body and was fine. And the funny thing is she comes in the house now and I can see her, like in my office flying around the room.
Wow.
It's really funny. You just sort of have to go, all right, I see you. Okay. It's really weird having these abilities, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it really produces miracles. It really does. When you look at somebody or an animal and just nail what the problem is instantly. And it's like, and my conscious mind is going, oh, Terri, that can't be right. But I share it anyway, and then find out later that's exactly what it was. And they were able to fix it. I mean, that's so gratifying to be able to do that.
I was just thinking when you said your old horse is still there, isn't it crowdy then? when you're in your 70s, you had a lot of pets all the way, and I know that I had a lot of pets and a lot of horses, and if they're all here, that it would be crowdy.
Well, sometimes you just have to sort of ignore it and keep functioning, because, I work really hard. I do readings all day, every day, 7 days a week. And so you just have to focus on what you're doing in the moment.
Yeah.
But once in a while, you feel one of them and you just think, oh, that's so cute. And it was really funny this morning, my horse, I was sitting down on the mounting block, waiting for the gal at housemaid to get done. And of course, my Daisy dog, she's jumping up on me. And so she's the one that's having the relationship with my gelding. So my gelding comes over because he's out loose till 1 o'clock. And he's just nuzzling her all over. And I said, don't you just love Daisy? And that's what I said to him. And he said, other dogs in. And I went, you can tell? He says, yes, other dogs in. So the 3 dogs that I lost over a 4-year period, he's telling me they're in her. Isn't that amazing? He could sense that.
Okay.
It was just, I just thought, oh my God, he knows.
Mhm.
Isn't that cool? So
Yeah.
they know a lot more than we give them credit for. They really do.
It's fantastic, and I think that you will have a lot of fantastic experiences, because if you can help people with a horse where the veterinary had said there's no more to do, it must be a fantastic job just to help out. You know how heartbreaking it is to tell people that there's nothing more to do. So
Right.
yeah.
And I have a funny one. I think it was a year ago, last October. I did a reading on this horse, and the gal said, we just brought this horse in from pasture. She's been turned out for a year. And when we picked her up out of the pasture, she had the same problem that she had when we threw her out. And part of me went, well, why didn't you frickin' fix it? You know what I mean? They thought turning the horse out would fix the problem. No, it doesn't. It never fixes the problem. If you turn them out with a problem and you say, well, we're going to leave her out for a year, give her a year off. You bring that horse back out of the pasture, you're going to have the same problem. It's not going to go away. Mm-hmm. I don't know why people think that's okay. So anyway, I looked at the horse and went through the horse with a fine-tooth comb. And of course, I'm doing this by phone. And I said, this horse is wonderful. And I said, the only thing that's wrong is she's got a pinched nerve in her right shoulder. She goes, that's the leg she's off on. I said, yeah, but you guys are focusing on her foot. I said, even your vets were focusing on her foot. I said, she's got a pinched nerve in her shoulder. And I said, this is what you need to do. And I said, get her adjusted, find somebody that does AccuScope. She needs really intensive AccuScope, maybe even some acupuncture. But and you might even want to get this injected because it's very, very painful. So she did nothing. And I'm not criticizing, that's her choice. Mm-hmm. But she did nothing. So then she gets an appointment with the best lameness vet, performance vet in California. And she takes this horse to this vet. And the vet goes through the horse with a fine-tooth comb, x-rayed everything. And he comes back after a couple hours and says, the only thing that I could find is a pinched nerve in her right shoulder. And so she says, that's what Terri said. And so, of course, the vet says, who's Terri? Mm-hmm. Well, she's a veterinary intuitive. He says, well, when did she look at the horse? And then it was like, she did it over the phone. She never really looked at the horse. He goes, she did it by phone? He goes, yeah, she's a veterinary intuitive and a remote viewer. So she looked at her over the phone. And of course, the vet's like, this is beyond his knowledge base, right? Mm-hmm. He goes, well, if you talk to her again, tell her she's right. And then he goes, what did she recommend you do? And they told him, he goes, well, that's what I'm going to tell you to do. So they lost like a year and a half, almost 2 years, because they didn't act on the information that they were given. And now the horse is back performing. But wow, isn't that bizarre? So, I mean, can you imagine the vet? I had to write a letter to the vet and tell him, thank you for all you do for the horses, because he's so good. He's really good. Mm-hmm. And I sent him my book, my first book, because it teaches you how to develop your veterinary intuition. And it's really fun, too, because I ended up doing a lost dog reading for them, a couple months later, which was spot on, and they found the dog. So it's really fun to, have that credibility, especially with the professionals. And I do a lot of readings for veterinarians and physicians. I have a really good friend who's an osteopath, and he'll call me and say, hey, I got this going on. What do you think? And, and I just tell him what I'm getting. Where was I? I was at the chiropractor's yesterday, and this gal walked out. And so I walked in, to get adjusted. And I said, that gal that just left? She goes, yeah. I said, so you're not telling me her name or anything. So we're not, violating HIPAA, which are privacy, laws in the United States. And I said, but she has head trauma hormone syndrome. She goes, okay. And she writes it down. I said, and she says, who should she see? And I said, this guy, he's the only one in the area that does head trauma hormones. And she said, okay, I'll tell her next time I see her. And I said, I'm really sorry. Tell her I apologize for invading her privacy, but it was so bizarre that she has raging hormone issues because she's had head trauma. No doctors put that together, none. And yet we have football, you know, our football is different than your football, but in the football stadiums, they now have MRI machines because they're so, you know, focused on if somebody gets a concussion, check them for a brain bleed, like right now. You know, they really are on top of it. And if somebody gets a concussion, you know, on the field, they check them for hormones. You know, like within 2 weeks, they check them for hormone imbalances, and then they adjust it accordingly. And this is a big problem with horse people. Think of how many horse people don't ride with helmets.
Yeah.
Probably not so much where you are, but here it's really bad. I mean, it should be a requirement for all horse sports. It should. And it's not. And so there's so many horse people that get head trauma and don't think a thing about it. And they're suffering terribly, and they don't think about the fact that they've pissed off the pituitary. And you piss off the pituitary, which is master gland, that master gland is going to send out all kinds of stuff that's wrong. And so it's really, people need to know that if they've had head trauma and they just don't feel good or they don't feel right. I've talked to 16-year-old boys that felt like they had PMS. I'm not kidding. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, PMS.
Yeah.
And they feel like they had PMS, and you know, and they go and get their blood work done, and it's like they've got raging estrogen, and it's like a boy with raging estrogen. That's not right.
No.
And they can do all kinds of adjustments, you know, to make them feel better. So anybody that's had head trauma, I don't know any horse people that haven't. I could guess and be right, not have to do, you know, medical intuition or veterinary intuition. It's like, you have head trauma hormone syndrome, you know. And then get them, you know, get it checked, and then you can. There's all kinds of ways to address it. So it's great. You know,
Wow.
car accidents. You know, if an airbag hits you in the face, you've had head trauma. You have.
Okay.
You know, it's that simple. Thank God you're not dead, but you know, just even being hit by an airbag can cause a concussion.
I didn't know that.
And this is really weird because my old vet, I lived in Vegas for about 11 years, and my old vet, I just love him to pieces. He messages me, I'm sending you a client. This horse is trying to kill herself. Big old 18-hand warm blood. She gets out and then hurts herself when she's out. And she's banging her hips on things. She's trying to back into things. You know what I mean? She's just a horn dog. So he refers this horse to me, and I'm working with the owner. And I said, when did this horse get knocked out? Did you own her when she got knocked out? She said, yes, I did. She says, I remember when she got knocked out. She said, I thought she was dead. I said, your horse has head trauma hormone syndrome. That's why she's acting the way she is. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hook your vet up to my osteopath. We're going to find out what tests you need, and then get this horse on some sort of hormonal support that'll stop this. It worked. It worked.
Wow.
But isn't that something? We just don't think about horses having head trauma. And especially with a horse that tall, things are not built for 18-hand horses. They're not.
No.
But we don't think about that, do we?
No, and that is strange because they have also a head, and yeah.
And you think about horses that pull back at the trailer and then flip over, and they hit the withers and they hit the top of the skull, the pole. Sometimes they get knocked out, but even just getting it knocked, you know, rings their bell. And we don't think, okay, now we're going to have hormone problems. And those are the mares that either are in season 24/7, or they can't get pregnant, or, you know, they have all kinds of problems from this, right?
Yeah.
And the geldings will have behavior problems. You know, you get geldings that'll squeal and everything. because they've got too much estrogen now from the head trauma. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
And nobody's looking at it except,
What can you treat them with then? Is, is there
you
anything?
treat them with hormones.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just you have to balance them.
okay, okay.
Yeah, so I mean,
There's
it is,
no
you can't
natural
treat it.
way you can do it.
Well, there are some naturally I can't talk, naturally occurring hormones, like soy products. Soy products are full of estrogen.
Okay.
And that's why some horses can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
They can't handle anything with soy, or they have a soy allergy.
Mm-hmm.
So there are natural ways of addressing it, but most people don't even know it's a thing.
No,
They've never had the exposure. They don't know it's a thing. And you think, yeah, well, she had, knocked her clock, a couple months ago, and now she's weird.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
So the blood work is extensive, but I think when I go to get tested, there's probably 25 vials that they fill. And I get pages and pages of results. And then it's like, well, you're all good. Keep doing what you're doing. Isn't that something?
It is really.
And it makes you feel good too, because I had like no testosterone. I mean, zero. I could not pick up an apple picker. I don't know if you guys call them that, the fork. We call them apple pickers for picking road apples.
Okay.
Manure fork. I couldn't pick one up with manure on it and dump it. I mean, I had like no strength. And I'm one of those people that used to put a 50-pound feed sack on my shoulder and walk, 100 yards with it. I was so macho, right? And so I was just so weak, and I had zero testosterone in my system. Zero.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I just use testosterone cream with progesterone, and I'm a happy camper.
That's fantastic.
I got all my strength back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, you learn something every day. This was very new. Yes.
Pardon?
This was very very new to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it is to most people, though.
Mm-hmm.
It is to most people. Because people just aren't talking about it. I mean, the best place to find information about it is the freaking United States football teams. It's like they're the only ones that are on top of it.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun, because if I'm dealing with somebody from, a different city, I go, do you have a college football in your town, or professional football in your town? Yeah. Find the team physician. Find the team physician and go see them, if they'll see you, because that's who you need.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Go down there with your horse. Hello.
Well, they can figure out what blood work, because it's some's the same, some's not. It just depends.
Yeah.
But that's really, I think that's really, really good, important information. Just not only just for the horses, but if they bang their head, we just don't think about it.
No.
Some people put head bumpers on.
You think that they maybe can get crazy because if they damage it, but not with hormones.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it'll upset the pituitary, which is a master gland, but it also upsets the pineal, the pineal gland too. So you never know what's being sent out that shouldn't be. And it, makes people and animals feel funky. They don't feel good. Mm-hmm. I had PMS so bad when I was younger. If somebody said, Terri, when you had PMS, you killed 5 people. My response would be, God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, but the PMS got the better of me. I mean, I could have been violent. I'm not kidding. It was so bad. And of course, did I have head trauma? Oh yeah, lots. Lots of times, falling off of horses with no helmet on.
Yeah.
So, and I was in a car accident once too. So, you just don't think about it. So I love learning from the physicians that I work with, and I'll say, this is what I'm hearing, or this is what I'm seeing. What is that? And I have vets and physicians I can contact and go, I'm being given these words. What does that mean? And they tell me, they're so kind, because I'm getting it, but I don't know what it is. And so it's really fun to be able to talk to them about it and find out what it is. It's really great. Oh God, it's just, the cooperation and everything between us. And I really want to write a paper and talk about how we figured out that this horse has hormonal imbalances, the one that was knocked out. How did we do that together, working as a team,
Yeah.
So I just got to get with both those guys and the owner, and see if we can write about it. Because I think people would want to know. And I think it's much more prevalent than we think, Anne, really.
Yeah. I'm sure that would be a great step forward to recognize when the horse is not feeling good.
Oh
Because
yeah.
by yourself, when you're not feeling good, when you just, I was sick a week ago, so I know, and you can't tell it, you can't say it, you just like this, and you can see the horses sometimes are in the same way, but you don't know
Sure.
what to do and all that. So there you can help.
Oh yeah. And it's really important to develop these abilities that everybody has. I mean, unless you've got serious cognitive problems, anybody can develop these abilities. I hate it when somebody goes, oh, I'm special, I have gifts. I just want to bitch slap them. I really do. It's like, no, you don't. Anybody can do this. Just knock it off. It's like, is your self-esteem so bad that you have to call yourself special or gifted? Knock it off. Anybody can do this. And do you know how many people I've trained to do this? And they'll call me and they'll go, Terri, I have to tell you, I'm doing this for a living now. Thank you. Is that okay with you? I go, is it okay with me? I'm going to do the happy dance with you. I'm thrilled you're doing it. Don't you worry about competition? No, I don't worry about competition. I've been at this 34 years. I love doing it.
Yeah.
And I love doing it all over the world. We do it by either, Skype or FaceTime. And my only restriction is they must be able to speak English, because it's the only language I've got so far.
The human or the horse?
The human. The horse, not a problem. I speak fluent horse. And dog and cat. I speak fluent animal, and fluent dead people. I do that too.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's all
that's
good.
amazing, because as you say, horses, they can communicate without a language, but we people, we are just, when we come to another country and we can't talk, we get panic and what could I say? Up with the phone and
Right. Or we talk louder.
Yes.
Do you speak English? Right. If you yell, you'll somehow get it across. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh God, that's hilarious. So I just
Yeah.
have my little bit of dog Hungarian that I speak, because I had a Komondor. But other than that, no, I have no other languages. I wanted to try to learn Spanish, and I have a friend who speaks Spanish to me all the time, trying to get me to. It's like, oh, I got 2 words out of that sentence. That was it. But it's fun.
Yeah.
I think I just need to focus on what I'm doing.
Yeah. What you understand.
Yeah.
That's
anyway,
right.
Well, it's wonderful working with you, Anne.
Yeah, and wonderful to talk to you. And I will put your links in the description, and so people can get in touch with you if you are open. Do you still have space for people? Because
Always.
I can imagine you have a lot to do.
Yeah, but I always make room. And they just have to figure out the time difference. I'm on Pacific Coast time, like California, but I'm in Nevada. And they just have to figure out the time difference, because I'm no good at it.
No.
And we have a thing on our phone. We all have a thing on our phone that'll help figure it out. So they just have, I tell them what times I've got available. And then we just have to say, well, let's do it by Skype or FaceTime. And then I just do audio because most of the time I don't have time to, get all foo-fooed up. So I just want to listen to the audio. I also don't want to be distracted. People will go out in their corrals, try to show me the horses. No, I don't want to. I want to pick up on everything energetically, not physically.
Yeah.
Because the energetic is much more reliable than the physical. And so that's why I just need to connect to the animals through the human with unconditional love. And then that's how I can feel the animals.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming here today. It was really a pleasure and then a good experience. And I hope I meet you again. And yeah,
Anytime. I love sharing this information with people and sort of demystifying it. Getting it into physics, not woo-woo stuff.
yeah, that's right. That's a good one.
Well,
So
thanks for
thank
having
you.
me, Anne.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who have been listening and seeing this podcast. And please subscribe so I can work more with people like Terri here and everybody else who's on the podcast. And it means a lot to me if you subscribe because the more people it get out to you, the better I can do this. So thank you so much. And thank you, Terri, for today. And see you later.
Thank you.